All right, JL Warren, thank you for joining me here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
So we're acquaintances, I would say, just kind of like loosely, I guess. So we're going to be going over this Rimjob video today. Here's a little sneak peek of that. The first content of yours I ever watched was actually Future Nightmares sent me a YouTube video you did of going over something Rimjob was saying. So I don't remember if it was presuppositionalist nonsense or what, but
Yeah, it was one.
presuppositional.
I think it was one of his videos about like arguments against atheism, and he did like a 3-part series on that.
Yeah.
And I've covered 2 of them because they're just not good.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. You had the long beard in
That's
that video.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, now I
yeah.
remember. Yeah, it was about atheism. I remember now. So,
It's totally different now because you can actually read my shirts when I'm around. So instead of like the beard blocking them, so I can understand the confusion.
that's a great shirt, by the way. That is a
Thank you
great
very
shirt.
much.
So, before we get started, I just want to maybe front load a couple of the things that are going to be said and just like some ideas and concepts before we get started. So what you're going to see is he's reacting to a video where I'm talking to some guy and he says, "How do you know the Big Bang is true?" And I say, "The scientific evidence is what validates my view that it's true." And then he says, "Oh, but on what standard do you judge things to be true?" And so it's like, okay, so we're doing this. Now, JL, we all have presuppositions,
That's
right?
true. That's true. Every worldview gets hung on a horn of the trilemma. There's nothing we can do about that.
But if I criticize somebody for doing the presuppositionalist shtick, aren't I just being a hypocrite?
No, not a hypocrite. So, in the sense, you're acknowledging this for that frame point. The whole point is to try and drag the other person down to their level in that respect, because they're saying that you have a particular failure. You pointing that out, it's like no. You also possess that, but their position is that okay. The way I've always seen it is that in these particular types of conversations, if you can't state that you absolutely know something to be true, then you can't possibly say that anything is true. And that always gets me. And so, because they hold that position based upon their presupposition, but they have their kind of like get out of jail free arguments like special revelation, natural revelation, shit like that. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
which is all just post hoc and ad hoc nonsense. But they're still predicating it upon that. So them pointing out yours is just literally a silent concession of their own. And then I don't know why they don't get this. I don't know why they don't see it. It's been pointed out to them by people better than me, that people more famous than me, and other like number of people point out. It's like you're just evening the playing field. You're just basically saying we both start from this thing which we acknowledge. So no, technically the hypocrisy is on their end, and they just refuse to see it, or they can't because of whatever reason, I don't know. But yeah, not a hypocrite, just pointing out the reality.
I don't want to give away too much of what we're going to see today, but something that somebody pointed out in a comment on, it was either this YouTube video or the other one I posted, was a guest I talked to immediately after this person who did the exact same thing. But somebody said, what's so dishonest about the presuppositionalist is they demand that you swallow all of their fallacies that come with it. And then there's just nothing you can do to attack their argument, because they claim unless you adhere to my worldview, you can't account for anything at all. And so the point the person was making was it's kind of a lose-lose situation when you attempt to engage with it.
Right. Yeah. So the way. Okay. So this is going up against presuppositional apologetics is both. It's both easy to knock down, but if you try to parse it out, it gets really, really hairy, and that's why I'm just not a fan of it at all. Because if you go all the way back to like Cornelius Van Til and his presuppositional apologetics he developed at his time, the kind of like neo-fascist ideology that went behind that is, and yes, for those who are wondering, look him up, look up his inspirations. He's a neo-fascist. And you'll understand why, the kind of controlling aspects of this. But I digress on that. But the idea being that they're essentially just defining the God as doing a particular thing in a particular way that they think needs to be done. And they're bringing up the false dichotomy that if knowledge is not absolute, then it's not. And then if truth is not absolute, then nothing can be true at all, which is just absurd. It's a false dichotomy. But the way they kind of scroll it in, because they appeal to metaphysics, and metaphysics, a la Wittgenstein, is completely speculative, then they really don't have any legs to stand on. They're just basically saying, this is how I perceive it. This is the way it must be. Therefore, there must be a thing that does this thing that makes it this way. And it gets really, really ridiculous, because when it comes down to it, if you want to attack it, you have to attack it on the speculative field that they're engaging in. And metaphysics is really so nebulous. You just people adhere to the metaphysics, to an idea of metaphysics or a metaphysical conception that kind of agrees with their intuitions. And it's like, I feel this way about the world, so therefore the world is likely grounded in a way that justifies how I feel about it. And when you argue that, you can't really go anywhere, because I can't say that you don't feel what you feel, or you don't intuit what you intuit, but I can say that your intuition does not provide you objective justification. So that's all. But they can say the same thing to me, which is just patently ridiculous. It's just debate, bro, philoso, Chad nonsense. that I think is designed specifically to do what Bahnsen said. What Greg Bahnsen said is to shut the mouth of the unbeliever, to kill the conversation, to give believers a reason to not leave, is the whole point, not to convince people to join. It's just, that's the tactic.
Yeah. The whole thing, and you'll see this in here, is it's just such a massive shifting of the burden of proof. I'm right because according to my presupposition, you can't be right. Okay, well, that's not really, I don't think that's how it works. But let's get into the video, because it's all
I do have the impossibility of the contrary on my bingo card.
Yeah, I think it pops up in this one. These two debates blend together for me. They were kind of the same, but let's see.
Right.
And it is going to be, for the audience, it is going to be sped up, because Jim Bob just spends an insane amount of time nitpicking 2 to 3 second long segments.
You said off of what criteria do I think the Big Bang is true?
Yeah.
The scientific evidence.
Oh man, Peterson, right off the gate, bro.
We already have a problem, apparently.
Bro, I'm going to use bro a lot today. What criteria? The scientific evidence. We're off to a real great start here, aren't we? What criteria? The scientific evidence. No, the question is about the criteria is, how do you determine which evidence you include, you don't include? What's the conclusion of the evidence? What criteria are you using?
So what's going on here? If I use scientific evidence to say that's why I believe a scientific claim, I'm being fallacious?
I think because if I remember correctly, he's angling towards the idea that the whole thing is circular. And that's ultimately where he's trying to go, is that we predicate the truth of these things on circular reasoning, which is not the case, because he never brings up predictive modeling, which is the whole point. Is like, we don't start with the assumption that it's true. We say that we are assuming that our interpretation is correct. And so if our interpretation is correct, if X is correct, then Y should happen. If Y happens, then our interpretation of X is correct, and so on and so forth. So it's just a misrepresentation of the whole process in order to try and make it seem like scientists are making absolute statements. And so we absolutely believe it to be true because of this, and where the reasoning is circular. So I think that's what he's setting up. That's my guess, because I've seen him do it before.
Perhaps. I don't actually remember. Now, if I say, if I want to do science, I have to begin with the thought that nature is consistent and that reality does feed me information that is, reliable. Now, is that an axiom? Is that a presupposition? Is it both? And is it fallacious to make that claim?
I would say it's only presuppositional. See, this is where it gets complicated, because the whole uniformity of nature. We know that that nature itself is not uniform. The beginning of the universe, it will not look like the end of the universe. We know that there is steady change. We know that entropy increases, so we can measure that the universe is changing. So what we acknowledge is that the universe is not uniform. The universe has local uniformity to our frame of reference. So that's an important distinction that a lot of these guys refuse to admit, that the universe it will always be the same, but it won't always be the same. It will be the same to our local frame, to our localized frame of reference. Yes, the degree of change is negligible. So therefore we can kind of dismiss it. So that's why our predictive models, hold until they don't hold anymore. And then on top of that, the other thing, uniformity of nature, and I lost my train of thought. What was the second one?
I just said that our senses are accurately informing us about the world.
So so as long as we acknowledge that our sense data is reliable to a degree, but not absolutely reliable. See, that's that whole thing about pigeonholing us into making absolute statements. And then when we say it's absolutely true, then we have a problem. Then that forces us into fallacious reasoning in order to try and get around that. But if we simply acknowledge, much like the problem of induction, it's not the problem that they think it is, because we acknowledge it and we work within the boundaries of that. But they want to say, no, you can't make absolute statements. So therefore, then you can't say anything about anything at all, which is just patently absurd. So that's where Jim Bob is going with that, because he refuses to acknowledge that these conversations are a lot more nuanced than he would have people believe.
What I typically say is, people say empiricism fundamentally falls apart because it can't justify itself or something like that. And I typically say in response to people, look, I do presuppose that my senses are accurately informing me about the world, but I don't just presuppose it. There are ways of dealing with that. What I typically, it's actually kind of a new thing I came up with. I call it coreferential experiences. So the scientific method works this way. Research is published and other people repeat that research. And if they get the same results, we have a justification for this claim or whatever. But even just like me sitting here being like, my cat is over there. If I moved my camera, you'd be able to tell me the same thing. That helps me know that I am not schizophrenic or something like that. Right. And so I don't just presuppose it. I would say that it is validated by these coreferential experiences. That's typically a response I have. No, go ahead.
I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. I think that's a good way to articulate that. I think is that while I do presuppose that my senses are reliable in a kind of day-to-day standard, I do have evidence and I do have predictive modeling that say that they are reliable, that confirm their reliability to a degree. Mm-hmm. And so as long as I don't box myself or I paint myself into a corner by making this is absolutely true. No, that's why I get, I go towards the probabilistic, that we can probabilistically determine things to be true to such a degree of probability that it would be irrational to doubt them without evidence to warrant that doubt. And so that's essentially kind of like my response on that is like, look, because we can't get past it. We all start from a subjective internal experience that is virtually unverifiable because it's me. And until we can, bridge that gap, we're all going to be starting from that point. So every single person on the planet is going to start from that point. And so what can we do? We work with the tools we have available. And this whole like presupposing like naturalism or empiricism like that is like, no, because if you look at what they entail, the reality is we don't make claims that things exist that we don't have access to. And we work with what we do have access to. So it's not a presupposition of naturalism or empiricism. It is, this is the tool that we have to work with, and we're not assuming that a thing exists that we can't demonstrate to exist in order to inform our conclusions. So if something supernatural exists and all of a sudden we have access to it and then we can use it to explain things, it's no longer supernatural, it's natural. So it constantly falls back to what we have access to. So it's not a presupposition that it doesn't exist, it's an acknowledgement that we can't use it, and until we can, we're just going to keep using the stuff that we do have access to without multiplying our entities unnecessarily. Thank you, Occam. So,
okay, very good. All right, we'll continue on here. I'll try to let this run for a bit.
I might have digressed on that a bit. I get kind of excited about these kinds of things.
No, that's totally fine. I think people love that.
Sola scientismo. He thinks the evidence is You think evidence is self-evident?
Well, there's nothing wrong with claiming that something is self-evident. I mean, that would be an axiomatic, like the truth reveals itself. I could just make that my presupposition.
Yeah, you could hold that there. You could. So
okay, well, keep going.
He does have a good intro. I got to give him that.
I do have a great intro.
Flute wins every time. My evidence. Does he know the problem of empiricism? He might. Peterson here is not a total dummy. He's not like Answers in Atheism.
Thank you, Rimjob.
Mike or Captive Desk. But right off the bat, that's just saying the evidence says nothing about the criteria, which is the evaluation of the evidence through what methodology, through what criteria are you using to establish that it's supporting or valid or something like this, right?
Predictive models.
Yeah, the ability to continuously produce predictable results. Yep.
Predictive models. That's the key. I don't know. Here's what's wild. This has been explained to him. Rimjob came into a live chat of one of mine and asked me a flat out question regarding this. And I brought that up and I explained the whole thing succinctly. Bam, done. And you know what his response was? Thanks so much. I appreciate that answer. And then he left my live chat. And I'm like, okay.
I guess.
So he knows the answer.
Or he just chooses to reject it. I don't know. I choose to reject your presuppositions. There. Now what are you going to do?
I reject your reality and substitute my own.
Yeah, the old classic Adam Savage. Yes. Okay. All right. What's next?
Yeah, but how do you know which scientific evidence is true and what scientific evidence is false?
How do I know that?
Yeah, that's the criteria. So criteria isn't off of the scientific evidence. I'm just asking the validity of the scientific evidence.
Right.
So how do you know which ones are true and which ones are false?
Well, there's really only one successful Big Bang model.
Dude, that's what's in question, Peterson. So when he asks you,
I don't get it. How do I know which one's successful? Well, only one produces results that are accurate, that we all agree are accurate, but that doesn't prove anything.
If X, then Y, then XY.
Yeah,
come on, guys.
Is he confusing scientific proof with justification behind it? I don't know.
Okay, so how Jim Bob buries the lead on these things, I'm never 100% sure. I think he just kind of like reacts to stuff, and so oftentimes I don't think he knows where he's going with it at all. Like because you like you said we mentioned when we were talking before that he'll do like a snippet and then he'll jump and then he'll miss like what comes after and then he'll like the way he does it. I think he's just like reacting to things, and so when he's just reacting to stuff, then it kind of like sets him up into these. It sets him up for failure. Ultimately, is what it does, because I don't think he reviews his work before he reviews the content before he goes into it. But that's just my hypothesis. Based upon just to explain that if Rimjob watches this. So, but I'm hypothesizing that you don't do the work.
Well, let's see if further evidence validates that hypothesis.
Let's see.
What's the criteria? You assert again that something's successful. He's asking you what makes that thing successful, so to speak. What does successful mean? You can talk about it. Reality is reality.
No, we perform tests and we collect data. Like, what does it mean to be successful? What I just said.
The answer's right there. It's like, evidence. Yeah. There we go.
What? It's successful.
See, I think he knows.
Yeah, he doesn't even know what to say.
Because I think that silence, the silence is golden.
Shit,
why
did I say that?
Speaks about exactly. I think he knows what it means by when you say that it is successful. Successful in doing what, Rimjob? Successful in making predictions that that confirm our interpretation. So, and then this is multidisciplinary. It feeds upon itself that we then take information from another field and apply it to this. Say, if this is true over here, then what about this? And then we refine these things to make these incredible predictive models that we utilize. So, just he knows it. That's why he's like, oh,
All right.
Sorry.
It's the only successful one. What do you mean successful? What does that mean? That's just restating the thing that your caller's asking.
And the modern iteration
I would have interrupted him like a dick. What do you mean successful? What's the criteria for something being successful?
of it, it's called something like CDMB Lambda or something.
Sounds like an oil. Sounds like a
Completely
P. Diddy
wrong.
oil brand.
Something like that. It's cosmic microwave background radiation plus the original Big Bang model. I don't remember what the lambda actually stands for in that, but anyways, there's only one Big Bang model that successfully makes predictions. There are issues.
There's only one model that makes predictions. What kind of statement is that? That's not
Successful.
predictions. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they okay, yeah.
That's not even true. You could make a bunch of false models.
Your show.
Wait, what? Listen to what he just said here.
Makes predictions. What kind of statement is that? That's not even true. You could make a bunch of false models that make predictions.
But we don't. Oh, well, okay. So it could be. I don't know if he means that the evidence being validated could be a mere coincidence, or if he means, well, you could make models that he didn't say correct predictions. So I don't know.
It's just like
I don't know where he was going with that. Let's see though. Let's see where he was going with that.
sorry.
Predictions are basically, especially at this astrology level, cosmology.
Astronomy. Oh man.
If Venus is in retrograde, then I'm gonna have a good day.
Babe, be careful. I heard there's mercury in Gatorade. All right, Jim Bob, it's a very easy thing to confuse. We're not insulting your intelligence. It's just really funny.
It's really not. It's not.
But if you want to pretend you know what you're talking about, that doesn't.
It's so much worse.
Energy level, observing light in the sky, so to speak.
So to speak.
As long as you can observe something over time, you can predict something like that. You can predict, but you can predict with flawed models, right? So I don't.
But the odds that you're going to get accurate results with flawed models, I mean, that's bound to be that's bound to be discovered by scientists. You know what's great? You know how many times the Bible has ever disproven a scientific claim, or how many times theology has ever disproven a scientific claim?
I'm going to quote The Big Short on this one. Zero. Okay? Never. It has never happened.
Yeah.
It's just...
This gets into where the debate goes eventually here, so I'm not going to give it away, but yes.
Geocentrism to heliocentrism. There's a point. Yes, to a degree it makes predictions, geocentrism does, but the more accurate predictions that reflect more data points, more information comes from heliocentrism, which is why that is the more accurate model. That's the point. It's we refine them. Oh, Rim. Oh, you greasy trucker man.
You devil dog. All right, here we go.
I'm not sure what he's talking about. It's the only. Does he mean Instagram model? I don't know what he's talking about. The only model that predicts. There are previous models of the universe, according to him, were false but accurately predicted. So that can't be the criteria.
What does that mean? False but accurately predicted? He just doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what steady state is. He doesn't know. Well, that was really only the only big competitor, and then there's this plasma theory thing. But so whatever, it's not worth giving much with it.
And he's kind of like he's kind of like referring to it kind of like very generalized when if you get down into the nuance of this, there's like a lot of these are working hypotheses that some are able to make better predictions than others do, but we still don't have like a full-throated scientific theory on these things, and some things that we do. So because he's not addressing that distinction, he's able to kind of like blend them all together into this big, this pile of garbage that he can just be like, look, it's all this. Is like, no, you have to be very, very precise on these things. And I've noticed he generalizes to a terrible degree.
It would be impressive if it wasn't so catastrophic.
Or false, but accurately predicted. So that can't be the criteria.
No, it's not. The model wasn't predicted. Sorry, the model wasn't predicted. The model makes predictions. And so if the model is false, or there are things that are wrong in the model, or there's not enough data points, then your predictions will be limited. They may come true, but you may have variation. It's kind of like how we discovered Neptune. Is like the predictive, that predictive which allowed us to discover, hey, that's weird. If this stuff is right, why is there a perturbation in Uranus's orbit? Or was it the other way around? Am I mixing this
other
two
way
up?
around.
Other way. So he's discovering Uranus. So it's like, why is there a perturbation?
No shit, you were right. It's Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I always second guess myself. But in that sense, how we discovered a planet is a perturbation in the prior planet's gravity. It's like, wait a minute, if we're correct, and we have been so far, why is there this weird perturbation in this orbit? Well, if we are right, then that perturbation, given the range of it, likely indicates that there's another planet that we haven't seen. So let's look. So if we're right, then we can predict that if there is a planet, then it will be at X point at Y time, and we should look there, and we'll see, and bam, we have another planet. So his misrepresentation is just, for lack of a better term, is just insane. Like, or either that, or maybe I don't know. Maybe he is like completely ignorant of the whole thing. I don't want to make the mistake of just saying that because we know. How is it possible that he doesn't know? I don't want to fall into that trap of assuming, it's like, we went to school and stayed in school and learned this stuff, but, so it's easy for us. So why is it not easy for him? I don't want to make that mistake. He could just, be ignorant of it.
Yeah, he might just not know. So
yeah,
with the Newtonian planetary mechanics, even when we were wrong, we were right. It's because there was another planet out there.
There are some kinks that aren't fully realized and worked out yet. But that doesn't mean that the other things we observe and other predictions we've made haven't come true.
So keep in mind, up to this point, while I'm talking to the Planet Peterson in the past Peterson, this whole time I've just been assuming the guy simply doesn't believe the Big Bang. So that's all I'm trying to cover right now is the scientific evidence. Yeah.
So, do you think
my predictions came true? So sounds like he's saying in a long roundabout way, he's saying my criteria is predictability, the predictive quality, the quality of predictions, the how well you can predict.
In a roundabout way, I think he's played about 20 seconds of my video.
How often? Is that what it is? I mean, fine. If
Come on, Jim Bob. Get it across the end zone. Fine. You're right at the 1 yard line.
Answers the question. So we can critique that, right? But I'm not sure. It sounds like, do you guys think he's saying that if he's asked what's the criteria to determine, he says the scientific evidence. Well, what does that say? It's so your criteria is that if something's predictive. Yeah, right. Exactly, Colin Rock. I have a theory that the sun will rise, and I'm just assuming a cause to that is God. The sunrise, it's risen. It's basically
but that's not a predictive model.
It's not a predictive model.
Well, okay, it's a predictive model, but it has no explanatory value. Because if God, then sun will rise. Well, the sun is rising, which is actually just affirming the consequent, if I say it that way. But yeah, I mean, the God hypothesis, this is what I laid out in my debate with Kent. You can claim it, but it has no explanatory value because this God has omnipowers and could have done anything, which means if it explains everything, it explains nothing in particular. That's what I like to say.
Science is about, by the way, the scientific method, the study of nature, is affirming the consequent. Now, it's not permitted in logic and just making statements. The reason is, in science, you can affirm the consequent because you can investigate and manipulate it and see if it's null or valid. Whereas in logic, you can't just assume the thing.
Is that how that works?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because we don't make the statement about the evidence itself before we get to the thing. We're not saying that's not how it works. Is that he's misrepresenting the starting position of where science works, where science starts with the observation, then then asks a question, and then it proceeds on from there. He's basically trying to imply that if you hold to empiricism absolutely, then you are assuming automatically that empiricism is true. And if your predictive model comes true, then that affirms that. So no, it's like, it's not like the predictive model is affirming is affirming empiricism, which is not what it's doing, because we don't start with the assumption that it's automatically true. We just are simply making an observation and saying that if my observation is correct, then if X is correct, then Y should be true. And so it's a complete and total misrepresentation of it. He's just trying to drag it down to, essentially, he's trying to drag it down to what the previous comment did. I predict that, if God exists, then the sun will rise tomorrow. But it's assuming that the God exists, and that is a true statement. And so he's just dragging the scientific method down to his level by a complete misrepresentation.
Now, what I would say, to be nice, I don't know why I would do that, but I do find that when you try to talk about scientific evidence, it is almost always, at least when I do it, maybe I'm just bad at doing it, but I don't really find a way to escape it. You do pretty much always produce it in these if X then Y, Y therefore X things. So for example, if evolution is true, then the fossil record should contain transitional forms. The fossil record does contain transitional forms, supporting evidence that evolution is true. So what's the difference here? Is it because I'm just saying it's supporting evidence? I'm not saying therefore.
Right. Yeah. So that's the very important nuance of that. It's that wild those gross generalizations that they know were incorrect representations if these people had simply stayed in school. It's like, you can't generalize these things to this degree. And then whenever we try to really parse out the nonsense or parse out the nuance of it, then they start like pushing back and getting upset, whatever, and doing their thing. So, but yeah, that's, you nailed it. You're the teacher. You're the teacher. I'm not the teacher. So,
for instance, when it rains, it's wet outside. It's wet outside, therefore it's raining. That's not logical. That's a problem. Okay.
Doesn't mean it's false, though.
However, in science, because of the
investigative
investigative aspect of it, the fact that you can do an experiment, by the way, in space, you can't do experiments with this cosmological models that they're referring to, like the Big Bang. You can do observations, but you can't do a scientific experiment.
That's kind of true. Like we can, but I mean, well, in particle accelerators, they are trying to recreate conditions at the beginning of the Big Bang. So that's actually basically false. I mean, we can't make black holes, but you can still make testable, like the existence of black holes was in the mathematics before any, like people, I can't remember who looked that over, but they were because it wasn't Einstein, but people looked at his papers and they're like, wait a minute. So if a star is what? and so the concept of the black hole was born out of that. And then in the 70s or 60s, we got some X-ray data.
Yeah. It was the only thing that could fit the data the way it was going. It's like, well, how do you account for X? In order to account for X and everything else be true, then Y must exist. That's what you're positing. And it's like, well, yeah. So if we find them, then that confirms, and of course, then we did find them. And now we've taken photographs of them, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So
an important thing that I like to point out, and I do this in my debates, especially with like evolution and genetics, I tell people genetics would have been the thing that did disprove evolution. Now, by itself, it doesn't prove it, but it is overwhelming supporting evidence. But if there had been no correlation in genes, that would have effectively disproven evolution. We had the test, and it passed the test, basically. So, anyways, we'll keep going here.
And so you can just come up with any model as long as you have access to observations that are repeated. You can then say it's a prediction, right? And then
so he's saying create a model based on the data that you collect. Now, I mean, that's how you develop something like, I guess, like that is how a model is generated, because people don't grow up in caves and then come up with ideas despite never having experienced reality. But these models continue making new and different predictions. So that's just
that is a long, arduous process that builds upon itself, that takes information from other fields that to confirm or even narrow down or essentially the idea that scientific conclusions in their minds is I've completely spaced on the word that they interpret the growing accuracy of predictive modeling, how our predictions get more accurate and get closer and closer and closer. And so they interpret that as that science always changes. And there's like a word that starts with a P. I've totally spaced on what that word is. How science, they say the science is constantly changing.
Right.
And
Paradigm
it is,
shifts?
but no, it's I'll think of it here in a minute. It'll pop into my brain. But they'll constantly say that because science is always changing, that you can't rely on science. But they don't indicate how it's changing. And it's changing by getting more accurate. It's not saying like, ooh, at first it predicted X. Oh, now it's predicting Y. And they're completely different. No. It's predicting X to a more accurate degree, where if the X might have been fuzzier before, now the X is more in focus. And it just keeps getting more and more accurate as we go along. They ignore that part. See, they'll generalize it, but then they leave out the important distinctions. Same crap.
Whenever people do that, I usually ask them, so are you claiming that you like literally don't believe that the Earth goes around the sun and that the universe is expanding? And usually they never do. So it's like, so then what's the fucking problem then? So I
did catch that one where you kept asking him, do you not believe that the universe is expanding? And that cat would not answer that question. Yeah. I don't know why it was so hard. It's like,
I don't know.
You support it with some mathematical descriptions and suddenly you have a model.
Think that we don't live in an expanding universe?
I don't even know what that means, by the way.
You don't know what that means? Okay, Jim.
You know, when Hubble came along and kind of defined this arbitrary contour to the universe, so to speak, or some arbitrary point distance away from your observation.
I don't know what that means.
Does he think that Hubble's constant is just arbitrary? Is that what he's implying?
I mean, I guess, but then he said contour to the universe. That would be the shape of the universe, which is Einsteinian. So I don't know what. We'll let him tell us.
Extrapolated that the universe as it is like a loaf of bread, and all the objects inside the universe are like raisins and nuts, and they're constantly being baked and expanding. This is a problem still, because first of all, what is it you're saying is expanding?
The universe.
Is there an item called the universe that's expanding? Is it what you're calling expansion is?
Well, I guess I would say like space, because the universe might not end at all. So then saying it's expanding is a little bit weird.
Individual,
well, just like the space time itself, and that the objects within it. I always like the balloon, like they taught us back in school. They're like the balloon with the dots on it, and then you inflate the balloon, and the dots get further apart. I thought that was always a good representation. It's just the inflationary model is, in that respect, but it's expanding.
And the bread thing and he's saying works too.
Yeah, and the distances between the particles are getting further and further apart, and that's why eventually work capability goes down, entropy goes up. It's
particulars moving equally away from each other. Well, that's not even true. I mean, as Christopher Hitchens said, the Andromeda galaxy is moving toward you, toward certain death and nihilism. Life is meaningless. Well, there's one
that's
thing.
A total misrepresentation of what Hitchens was talking about. Like, I remember him talking about
therefore nihilism.
Right. It's kind of like, no, it's like, wow. I don't know how he jumped to that. I know why he jumped to that. I know why he did, but that is complete misrepresentation of what Hitchens was talking about.
Not consistent with the expanding universe. It's a so-called galaxy moving toward us.
A so-called galaxy moving toward us. No, I address this. This is one of those things where if he'd have played 5 more seconds, I address it. So we'll just let this keep rolling, because he's kind of wasting our time.
The other thing is, if every object you look at by measurement is moving away from your observation point, in this case, Earth, where's Earth moving to? Is it moving toward those things? Is it moving away from those things?
It's in motion, and everything is relative. You can treat it as stationary, but anybody light years away looking at us would see us moving away from them. And that they'd have to be many light years, because Andromeda and us, we are converging, because at local scales, gravity is stronger than the expansion of the universe, but it's a big universe.
I don't think he understands what frame of reference is. So I don't know. That's the only thing I can posit from this, is that he does not understand what frame of reference is, and I'm assuming special relativity. in that respect. So that's my guess.
Which one's moving toward what? Basically, the whole relativistic view that nothing's static, there is no static position in the universe. It's very hard, if not impossible, to say that you even have a position to say something's expanding away from something else.
Well, we can literally see it happening.
You don't even have the vantage point. You have to just assume it.
No, we see it.
we see it.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind.
In fact, not only can we see it, we can generate predictive models based upon what we see. So it's like, come on, dude.
He's going to spurg out when he gets presupped, so to speak. Meanwhile, he's starting with a presup.
You'd have to specify what that means.
So everywhere we look, space is
accurate seeing, testing, and predicting. Yeah, but you can do that with false models, Amir.
But they don't make accurate predictions. They don't make correct predictions.
Yeah, no shit.
It's like, come on, Jim Bob. Be honest, man. Intellectually honest. Come on, dude.
I mean, you can
do it at least once. At least once.
At least once.
As puzzles.
Is moving away from us on short distances, which is actually millions of light years. There are things moving toward us, like Andromeda, but the universe overall is expanding.
See, Jim Bob?
What do you mean overall? I mean, that statement.
I think I only watched really small parts of this, and this is one of them. He goes into this thing where he pauses every now and then when I say a word just to say, what do you mean by that word? Which isn't, I mean, it's as if he's trying to say that I don't really know what I'm talking about, but it looks more like you don't know what I'm talking about. Like, are you asking me to tell you? Because I'm not even in the room with you, Jim. And he doesn't.
He does it often enough. I think he's channeling that Jordan Peterson energy. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by why? What do you mean by is? What do you mean by the? And it's like, that's what that is. It's just a deflectionary tactic. It's all it is. It's just trying to like that Philosoph Chad, you know. I don't want to get salty because I know you keep your channel clean, but that's that BS, that nonsense.
Yeah, well,
is kind of.
I don't want to be all fish. I'm a salty fisherman on my own, so I don't want to drag it over here.
Oh, don't worry about it. It'll be fine.
What is the thing you're referring to? That's a universe.
The universe.
What is that?
The totality of all things that exist.
Yeah, the set of all things.
The set of all things.
Because they're trying to use induction for particular items in the universe, doing particular things through your observation, and then extrapolating some sort of generality about something called the universe. Okay? To me, that's a massive jump.
Okay, yeah, I'd agree.
No.
So if I told Jim Bob that there is gravity on Pluto, would he be like, well, that's a massive jump. You only know that because of what happens here on Earth. I mean, technically we can say maybe in different parts of the universe, the laws of physics work differently, but there's no reasonable grounding to make that claim.
And they want to call us radical skeptics.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Okay, you believe in the Big Bang then? No. Okay. So what about the Big Bang do you not believe?
So what about the Big Bang? I don't believe. I'm saying that the criteria, as you said, there's one specific scientific model in which proves the Big Bang. I'm saying, how do you know that one is true? Because I don't believe in the Big Bang.
I'm confused. Are you asking me if I am a scientist and if I have done scientific tests?
No, he didn't ask you that, Peterson. He asked how.
Yeah, which is why I asked him, is that what you're asking me, Jim?
How do you know? How did you verify that the model that you're defending right now is a true model versus another model that makes positions that states things about the predicted observations, right? How do you know?
I'll make it simple. I'm asking an epistemic question. Do you know what that means?
Now he's bad faith because he's acting like he doesn't know what that means. Peterson knows what that means, but he's an entertainer. I'll give him that. Fine.
No.
Okay. So I'm asking a question of where you derive your knowledge claim from.
Oh, so you're just doing presuppositionalist apologetics. Okay.
No, that's a cope.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Jim Bob, you were so obtuse. Oh, man.
Peterson, you should stop doing this, okay? You know,
What did I do?
You're gaining some momentum online. You can't just say you're pre-supping me just so you don't have to answer a question.
Oh, the title of this video is a new atheist kid on the block, Planet Peterson. I wonder what people are saying. Painful Peterson. The laws of physics are properties of matter. In order for matter to coalesce in some regular way, wouldn't the laws need to be in place prior? No, they emerge simultaneously. I don't want to go through the comments, but
Yes.
I just wanted everybody to Jim Bob discovered me recently. Apparently, is the deal. So this is him.
Well, lucky
What do you
you.
call it
I
when
had
you're
to actually.
What do you call it when you're fangirling but you're hating on somebody? Clout chasing. Yeah, this
Clout
is Jim
chasing?
Bob doing that. Yeah.
Okay.
You're lucky. He discovered you. I had to call him out for him to come over and start looking at my stuff. So.
Oh man, look at this freeze frame we ended up on.
Oh, you're pre-supping him. You're presupposing a singular moment or in time, an initial time and space in a Cartesian system where all of the universe was in.
I am presupposing things that both of us have access to, instead of the other thing, because the justification for the presuppositionalism is always going to be, like you were saying earlier, well, I have special divine revelation and access to information, which is why I invented Spanky and the Spanky Bible, which I don't know where I put it. I think it's right here. Yeah. The Spanky Bible. This book is true. There, that proves it. And every single prophecy in the Spanky Bible has come true, including this very moment right now, because this is happening. So there we go.
In one spot and then expand equally in every direction away from that one spot. That's a presupposition.
No, it's not.
It's an observation.
No, it isn't.
Okay. Now he could say, well, no, that's not a presupposition. That's a supposition that's derived from our observation.
Yeah.
Okay. You still have to tell us, how is it you came to a singular point in the universe?
No, I don't.
Wait.
This is like, if you can't explain the origin of something, then you can't, like, this goes with like Kent Hovind or whatever. You can disarm this, be like, I can believe. It's the equivalent of saying, if you can't provide an account for abiogenesis, then Darwinian evolution isn't true or isn't supported. No, because God could have miraculously created life, and it's just progressed through Darwinian evolution.
Right.
since then.
There's no logical contradiction, and I know that fallacy sniping. I watched your recent thing with that, but there's no logical contradiction in naturalistic theism, in which the God exists and the way it interacts with the universe is in completely naturalistic ways, which is how they reconcile the belief in a God and the lack of evidence for the supernatural. It's like everything, so that's the way it interacts. There's no problem there, and so but the unwillingness to reconcile these things and hold to like specific doctrinal positions, governed by the denomination, that's where it gets problematic. If you're not willing to change your position or even acknowledge that you can move to another logically possible position in regards to the evidence and still maintain a kind of belief like that's not, I wouldn't agree with it, but it's not problematic in that respect. And so, Jim Bob, come on, man.
Stop it.
Where all things expanded from rapidly. If there is no single place in the universe, according to the expanding universe model, there is no place in the universe that wouldn't occur as the center of the universe. There's not a single place in the universe, according to this model, that wouldn't occur if you were there as the center.
I don't know what he means by that. Everywhere looks like the center of the universe. Maybe that's
right, depending on frame of reference. That's that why I don't think he grasps what that means.
Yeah, I think he might be doing this thing that a lot of people do, where they imagine what the Big Bang tells us is the universe used to be smaller, and so you could say it was over there, like at that place in the universe we can see right now. That's where everything used to be. No, it's always been infinite. It's always contained the same amount of matter and energy. Maybe it's finite or infinite, whatever. In either case, though, it's always been all of that. So
Right.
They
So
have
it's
this
like
thing called an
so
expanding
the balloon analogy. All the spots on the balloon are expanding out, are inflating out away from each other. But if you reduce it, all of the spots all become the center.
yep.
So that's the idea that, and then of course, once you get to a certain point, it becomes mathematics. It's, because we don't have access beyond, we don't have like empirical, observational, or measurable access to states prior to the universe, prior to the Big Bang, which is why it's all mathematical. But in that respect, that's where it is. That's the sentence. Like all the spots were once at the center, and all the spots are expanding out away from each other. So that's why, the effect. So
Universe,
I don't think he grasps it. I don't.
Probably not.
That's what a universe is. And then they're making relations. They're making descriptive descriptions about relations between objects in space, time, space, distance, speed, and then they're coming to some conclusion about the wholeness of the universe.
Okay.
I mean, if you derive it from empiricism, that's
So
fine.
can you,
Do you know what empiricism
let's
is?
agree to argue in good faith here.
Yeah, it's good, dude. It's a good faith question to ask you. How is it you know? Like he's asking you the criteria, you barely could get that out. And now he's asking, well, how do you know? He isn't asking for the justification for the existence of knowledge. He's not pre-supping you the way, you would imagine in these discords that people do.
He implied it.
Yeah.
He's asking you a fundamental question about your knowledge.
Instead of whatever game this was. So on what grounds do I claim that scientific knowledge is valid? On science's continued ability to solve new problems and answer questions about the natural world. It has been extremely successful in doing that.
It's been successful. It's
Yes.
funny that they think, he speaks of it like it's an egregore, like it's doing.
A what? An egregore? I have no idea what he just said. I have no idea. I'll just let this play. See if you can find anything.
Like the thing is doing something. So it's a nice circle, yeah. So it's successful because it's successful. It's successful because it's successful at the thing.
No, it's verified by its success.
Okay, so egregore in esotericism has been used to denote a group mind or collective consciousness of a religious community.
Okay, well, I don't even remember what that would have been in reference to. So, new word of the day though, egregore. Okay,
egregore. Yeah, it's like I guess I think it's like a way of him trying to sound referring to like the scientific consensus. And so that may be how he's trying to play with that. I would not have used that term because of its context, of the contextual definition of that term. But that's, words are polysemous, so, whatever.
Right. That's what I asked the other person, right? I forgot who was on. It was Newman, right? Remember Newman came on? And they said, science is the best method to come to truth and fact. This is what Peterson's saying. Science is the
about the natural world.
Best method for coming to for distinguishing between fact and fiction, right? He would agree with that. Well, that statement is about fact or fiction, isn't it? Isn't that a statement about truth? Isn't that, the caller is right to say.
Well, it's more about determining the difference between reality and imagination is what it is, because we recognize the differentiation between concretes and abstracts. Mm-hmm. And so we have criteria for determining that things are concrete and criteria for determining things are abstractions or abstract concepts, which is why, and the whole process is how we're able, the mechanism is, or the methodology is how we delineate between these two things. That you can conceptualize the thing, but just because you can conceptualize it doesn't mean it actually exists concretely, and vice versa. So the whole point being is that we're able to successfully do that, because you've said this numerous times, that we are successful in being able to delineate things. And that's and because of the success of the predictive modeling, that's how we confirm that our interpretations are correct. And then we get more accurate. I don't know why he's not. Well,
I don't know either. I think the whole philosophy behind science's inception came about from different people. Either, I don't know to what degree Roger Bacon knew any of the works of Ibn al-Haytham or anything like that, but they each came to this idea of, how about don't take claims of the past for granted on authority or by virtue of their authority or anything like that. Let's come up with a way to verify if a claim actually holds true. And so independently, different people came up with this concept of doing science. And so it's not circular, it's not self-referential. Science doesn't prove science. So I don't know what else to say.
I feel inclined. I was the first time round, just to throw that out there, because I'm total ego stroking there. But when I was in college, one of the best pieces of advice one of my physics professors ever gave me was that a thing is not true because it was true in the past, or that it might likely be true in the future. A thing is true because it has been demonstrated to be true now, which is why we constantly do science. It's not like we stopped testing relativity. You know, people are still trying to poke holes in special relativity. People are still trying to poke holes in all kinds of things, because poking those holes, if we can successfully do it, means that there's more data points that we can put into the whole thing and get a more accurate prediction going forward. And so the work is still ongoing. We constantly test. And that's the process that we're relegated to. And that's not problematic. It just means it's just recognizing where we are from our frame of reference and what we have access to. So true because it's been demonstrated to be true now. Done.
Boom.
Okay, well, if it's the scientific method or empiricism, how is it that the scientific method and empiricism can't verify that statement, that it's the best method? He just says, well, it is.
Yeah, so it's a circle. Science proves science.
Yeah.
Empiricism
Nice circle, he says, yeah.
justifies empiricism. Do you know who David Hume is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Problem
David
with
Hume,
I
one of
knew
his
it.
biggest critiques on the
Yeah. Well, I'll just let it play.
empiricist
Yeah.
In general was that empiricism, sense data, can't justify sense data. So
Okay.
there's no sense data. There's no.
I don't care if it can rhetorically be justified. Does it work? Yes.
Does it work? So just affirm the thing. What does that mean? Work toward what?
See, that's what I was telling you. He just gonna be like, what does that mean? What universe? What universe? Work? what are work? So
What? That's just restating the problem you have in a different form, dude. He's asking you, right? This appeal to what works and what doesn't work. This is how Matt Dillahunty supposedly justifies logic. It just works. My logic tells me that the male that I'm sleeping with is a woman.
Oh.
Okay, so you're pragmatic.
nice.
If it works, is all you care about. It's not justification.
Yeah, because
It works.
so
Earlier I was like, I stopped calling him Rimjob, but I'm never going to stop calling him that now. So
So it wouldn't be a video like Jim Bob's without a little transphobia. I mean, it's got to be dropped in for that. That's just a thing for his. I honestly think that's a thing for his audience, because that's the kind of collective mind. That's the egregore that he has assembled. See how that works? So, but nonetheless, they like that shit, and so they like that crap, and so he placates them with that nonsense. It's just.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I don't. I didn't correct you earlier, but I do not keep it clean. So don't worry about it.
whenever I have these discussions, what I like to ask people is,
This is why the ultimate defeater to atheists and naturalists is they don't have a reason for coming to truth descriptions, because they reduce truth to descriptions of things. They don't care to ask, what are the preconditions for truth existing and coming to knowledge? Why ought we come to true knowledge? Why?
If a reality objectively exists and that is a true fact, then that reality, that universe, is going to be composed of subsets of facts. And if I exist, I can
abide by this.
If I exist, I can experience them. And if my experience is predictable and not like uniform, but like non-random or whatever, now I have a model that informs me about reality, and it can teach me about reality it can predict, I guess, reality in the future, and it rings true, and voila, we have a justification. Now, it's a presupposition, it's an axiom, but I don't find any contradiction here. So
No, it's good. I mean, there's a whole bunch of points you go into this. Like, it's weird because I would love to ask, like, Rimjob here, what his theory of truth is, like what theory of truth he holds to. because things get kind of wacky. Like if you're a correspondence theorist, if pragmatism, like rhetorical, or if you're like coherence theorist, depending upon where he goes, like what is his theory of truth that he subscribes to? And because I find that a lot of people out there don't actually know what they do, but when you start describing them, they're like, oh yeah, I'm that one. And typically the vast majority of people are correspondence theorists. It's a correspondence theory of truth is what it is. And this goes all the way, I mean, but you can touch on that, like theory of truth. You could also touch on like, Cartesian certainty, in the respect that we know an experience is being had, even though we presuppose that it is the I that's having the experience, a la Nietzsche's response to Descartes in that respect. So, which is what I hold to. So an experience is being had and we can derive from there. But everything you said after that, yes, that's how that works. Yeah.
Okay. True is what corresponds to reality.
Correspondence theory of truth. That's typically what
Big
people
Bang.
do.
Why ought, they're underneath all of it, in all of their channels and all of their work that they do and all their debating, they're actively participating in something their own worldview can't justify. This movement toward what they call truth. This movement toward some sort of
So I can't justify truth because I don't presuppose that it's grounded in the mind of God. That's just
just absurd. Just
I reject your presupposition. Now what?
fictitious teleology, some higher purpose toward what? What are you doing? Why
we don't assume that there is one. No, we would just it's making observations, and truth statements are that which describe reality. That things that are determined to be true because they correspond to reality, and we can confirm them independent of mind and context. Mm-hmm. It's not difficult, Jim Bob. It's not hard. Okay, that's what it is. I mean, if we're not making grander statements about what truth is, that a thing is, that truth must be instantiated by a mind inside. That's when we recognize it because it's been grounded like that. But truth itself is a transcendental. Okay, it's an abstract conceptualization that describes that which corresponds to reality, typically what's in people's minds. It's not something that it's not this idea that it is prescriptive of the universe. Okay, that you see how that doesn't make sense. It's like it's descriptive. Truth describes. It's not, so it's not like it's that's why it's a pain in the ass to articulate. So yes, it's the same with logic. Logic is descriptive, not prescriptive of the universe. Descriptive language of logic. Yeah. So
that's exactly. I usually don't. I don't say it that way, but that's exactly how I communicate, or that's exactly the same idea that I have. Is these logic and whatever are descriptions we have come up with for our experience in reality.
Right.
Imagine
we
that a
observe
universe
phenomena. Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine that a universe doesn't exist. What kinds of true statements can we make? Well, none. So,
so yeah, it's just like it. That we make observations, observe that a thing is itself, and I mean this is Aristotelian. It's like we observe a thing is itself, and it is not what it is not, and then we make distinctions between these things. I can distinguish between my phone and my pen because of this. Very, very simple. So in that sense, then we then articulate that as the law of identity. The phone is the phone. The phone is not the pen. The pen is the pen. The pen is not the phone. And then from there, we go, law of excluded middle, law of non-contradiction, and so on and so forth. These are descriptive terms so that articulate these things.
For some purpose, right? What is it? No purpose. There's no purpose.
Apart
this
from,
just an appeal to
this just an appeal to
consequence.
Winning arguments. What would adopting your worldview allow anybody to do that they can't already do? So I don't know if you caught what I said there, but this is something I love to do. I said, apart from, in your opinion, winning arguments, what could adopting your worldview allow anybody to do that they can't already do? So, and this is going to be so fun.
I would say that like apart from stalemating arguments, because that's really all it does. Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry.
What would adopting your worldview allow anybody to do that they can't already do?
Purpose. I just said it. Your view is dysteleological. A Christian view is teleological. Now, from you,
therefore, it's true. Like if it gives you warm fuzzies, then okay, but I don't really care.
Your view, Peterson.
That's not really something that you're doing. Experiencing, sure, but doing not. That's not what I meant, at least.
And here's the kicker on this: is that where Jim Bob is going with the whole purpose like this. That's not someone finding a purpose for themselves. That is having a purpose dictated to you by the thing that you're presupposing exists. And so It's literally, in the sense, you're in that worldview, you're looking at the universe and you're deriving what your purpose is intended to be for you. So it still kind of serves as a function of the universe, like the God in the universe. The God creates the universe, and my purpose is a function of that universe as dictated by the God. So, and it completely strips away the identity of the individual. In that sense, that's what it boils down to, is stripping away the like who you are and your kind of like autonomy and like how you think. But this goes into, if you go further into the theology of this, it's the whole sense of like who you are and what you think is completely irrelevant. That all of that is like unwashed rags. It's all trash. Lean not on your own understanding, dude, crap like that. That anything and everything that is true, including like who you are and what your purpose is and what you're intended to do, all the crap is all coming from the God. And so it defeats that in that respect by reducing humanity to this kind of like, almost this kind of like slave mentality. Like they never addressed like the entailments of what they're saying and how problematic they are in like reducing human beings to what this is, when we're supposed to be this, but like it's utterly ridiculous. That's a complete digression. I got to point out that like theists, y'all never ever address this crap, like what that means. A dictated purpose has no value, especially when that purpose that's being dictated by the entity is completely subjective and it's completely arbitrary, because nothing exists to dictate to the God what anyone's person should or should not be, or whatever. So it's literally just like, this is your purpose, and I'm just giving it to you because I want to. That's pretty much it. That's not that doesn't work. So nonetheless, I digress. Sorry, go ahead.
Well said.
And from every other naturalist, from every other physicalist, from every other atheist view, it's all about pragmatism. So as long as a theist can come along, Peterson, and say, my view offers more pragmatism, it offers just as much, if not more pragmatism, workability than yours. So the reason that that's fine under their view is because from the atheist view, if they're just cherishing pragmatism as the standard and criteria for truth, you could just present how believing false beliefs is very pragmatic. If he
So he's not wrong, but it's very irrelevant to what I was talking about,
right,
because
yeah.
I'm talking about, we're having a discussion on science, or we kind of were. And so I said, look, civilization starts over tomorrow. We're going to need to know how to grow food and do things. And if all I have is this, and I adopt your view that nobody can justify what they believe, unless they adopt your worldview, then how is that going to help us? Now, it may like provide social benefits or whatever, but that's not what you can't build a better bicycle with the Bible, or presupposing that the things you're doing in your experience is grounded in something we can't see or experience or know about. Right. That's what I'm actually trying to say.
Believes religion is all false. If he believes Christianity is false, Islam's false, all of it's false. If he believes that, he can't argue against it if it provides workability, which is
no.
Okay, hold on.
Go.
Rimjob, didn't you just say you can make false models that make predictions earlier? Weren't you the one saying exactly that earlier? Okay, so just because it has some sort of usability, workability, doesn't make it true. Jim Bob versus Rimjob, the final battle. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that?
Sorry. I'm just reminded, it's the same thing. To give you an analogy on this for anybody who might be listening, the best analogy that I can come up with this is like, if you happen to be a believer and say you get into a car accident and you're stuck in the car, the firefighters are working to get you out, and you pray to the God that you think exists. And that prayer keeps you calm, it keeps you centered, it lowers your blood pressure. You don't panic, you don't panic and freak out and end up hurting yourself further. And then that calmness allows, gives the firefighters time to cut you out of the car, and they get you out and they save your life. The fact that you prayed had utility, okay? Because it kept you calm, you didn't hurt yourself, in your panic, you didn't raise your blood pressure, have a stroke or a heart attack or whatever, that's the whole point. There's utility in the prayer, or you could say like meditation, like meditative practices, because it kept you centered, kept you calm. That does not mean your God exists.
Right.
That
Because
simply means,
we can run a placebo test. Mindfulness
Bingo.
training and meditation would offer the exact same kinds of benefits. So there's nothing special there.
Right. There's nothing there. And so, Jim Bob, just keep contradicting yourself, man, because it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
It gets so much worse, though.
Work toward what? A goal, right? Something working doesn't tell you the goal of why we should use something that works.
I don't know if you saw this video that he's watching, but I go like full Darth Dawkins on this guy. I'm not super proud of it, but I think he deserved it. And we're going to see that soon-ish.
Tell you the goal. So pragmatism, the caller has already reduced Peterson's entire view and defense of the Big Bang and science to pragmatism. And Peterson is completely unaware of it, of what that does to his position. He's completely unaware of the trap that the caller just set. So well done,
It's not
caller.
It's not a trap.
It's not a trap, and I don't have any problem with that. With that, it's merely pragmatic. So
because go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't even say it's merely pragmatic. It does justify claims. So
Peterson's not really understanding the shit that he just stepped in, and you clearly do because you walked him through this.
Yeah, so I'm asking a question.
So the question was, if anybody adopted your worldview, what would they be able to do that they otherwise cannot do, apart from win arguments?
Give an account for the regularity of nature.
he just did what I said otherwise. Apart from making these dumb presuppositionalist claims that unless you believe what I believe and you can't do blank, what can you do? Well, you can't justify blank. How did he do that? How did he do that? Apart from jump rope, do you know any tricks? Oh, I can jump rope. Okay.
Oh, God.
One trick pony.
I'm centered.
Yeah, that was the moment I said a while ago that that we were building up to.
Laws, invariant laws, the fact that your mind exists at all, which is even saying God did it is still a better explanation than colliding chemicals.
No, it's
That's
not.
It's not an explanation at all.
It's
That's
just a
not
claim. Yeah, it's not an explanation, it's just a claim. And we do know that chemicals colliding does alter the conscious experience. We know that. We know that. We don't know what consciousness is. I mean, not really. I would say it's emergent from brain states, but I don't want to get into all that, but
yeah, because you can get into it. Suffice to say, neurophysiology and neuroscience has come long enough that we understand that there is both a correlative and a causative relationship between what we call consciousness, the umbrella term that we give, that is the collective of mental phenomena. Okay, so like if you use it like that term, like consciousness is the umbrella term that we use to describe all mental phenomena, the collection of mental phenomena, the set of mental phenomena. There is a correlative relationship between mental phenomena and the physical brain, and there is a causative relationship as well, because we have a predictive model that tells us that if we were to damage or stimulate areas of your brain, then we can get a predictive outcome in a specific mental phenomena. So, and we can do this, like things like the Karen helmet, which is an amazing device. Look it up, Karen helmet. So, or the God helmet is what they call it. So in that respect, we understand this. Now, it's not saying correlation equals causation, but there is correlative and causative. We know that if we damage an area of the brain, you cease being able to do a particular thing. There is enough information on the table that mind-body dualism, throw that out the window. It's antiquated thinking at this point. Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing isn't an explanation, it's just a claim.
Just a claim, yeah.
Yeah. The mind of God. What is the mind of God? I have no freaking idea. Oh, and things are grounded in that? Yep. Why? Because they couldn't be otherwise. Fucking great.
Because they are. Yeah. It's brute. It's just brute.
Yeah, the floor is made of floor.
In property called mind or consciousness, which you can't point to at all. And that it's all basically unguided, random. Keep in mind emergentism, which these people always use emergent property. Emergentism actually defeats their position of arguing emergent property of the mind and consciousness. So it would explain consciousness. It would explain universals, the existence of universals, the existence of immaterial things like the laws of thought, which are conceptual and not identical to matter, right? It would account for that. It would account for purpose, why you're here. It would account for a normative. It would give a normative authority for how you operate in the world, which secular.
I could pull a Rimjob and be like, what do you mean account for? Like he's just gonna now who's being pragmatic?
Just gives a raise. Just gives a raise that you it is. I think he. I'm pretty sure he's trying to derive an ought from an is on this one. There's like the God is the case. Therefore, we ought do this in that respect. But I mean, none of that. I love how he's glossing over all of this. He's glossing over all of this shit and not addressing them. He's just making these assertions that have so much more nuance to them than he wants his viewers or anybody else to like really dive into. Once you break these things down beyond this kind of like surface level Reddit tier apologetics. So, because he uses that a lot. So, but nonetheless, once you break it down past the surface, this crap falls apart.
Complete side note, but I went 33 years without realizing that when you said glossing over earlier, my whole life I thought it was glossing over, and then I wrote this in my book, and Grammarly corrected me. I was like, "What?" And it said, "No, it's gloss." Actually, I said to gloss over, and it was like, "No, it's gloss." I was like, "What? Gloze? I've never seen that word in my life." And I looked it up. I was like, "Oh, I thought it was gloss. It's gloss," because it just kind of sounds the same when people say it quickly. But yes, it's gloss over, not gloss over. So.
Gloss over?
Yep.
I may have just learned something new. I always thought it was to gloss over because you apply a gloss to a thing, so you're glossing over it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Which, after I thought about it, I was like, well, that doesn't actually make sense because gloss doesn't like conceal something, I guess. But that's how I always thought it was. But it's gloss, Gloze.
Oh, is that gloss over? Gloss. To make something seem less bad by offering excuses, he tried to gloss over the problem. Okay, I'm sorry. Gloss or gloss over?
We're good.
Gloss and gloss over both mean to minimize the importance of something, but they have different connotations.
Oh.
So gloss means to explain away or minimize the importance of something. Gloss over means to avoid considering something or to make it seem unimportant.
Oh, okay. So this is like, what are those two words? Supposedly and supposably. People think supposably isn't a word. It is. They have extremely similar meanings, but they're technically different. So, okay, so we're both right.
Okay, so if what Jim Bob is doing here is he is glossing because he is explaining away or minimizing the importance of something. These things are very important to parse out, and he is just glossing over them. Gotcha.
See, this is high value educational entertainment.
And atheism and naturalism doesn't. It actually gives you a duty to reproduce, whereas the secular view that Peterson holds doesn't give you a duty to reproduce.
Jesus, helping people get laid since the year 30 AD or whatever.
Well, I'm not really in the mood, but God exists.
I have a duty to reproduce. You actually, I mean, I don't know how there's a theological duty to reproduce. If everybody right now died, nobody else would ever go to hell, which sounds pretty freaking awesome if hell exists. So
this is appeal to consequence nonsense.
A theological view, generally speaking, would give you a philosophy that basically, like I said, provided more fitness. More fitness. I've defined what a mind is. What are you talking about? You're just a liar.
Well, not today, you didn't.
I've defined under a Christian view, the mind, the nous, the heart, the mind. These are metaphysical organs. These are not. These are not identical to matter. Now you can just reject that, but to say I can't define what a mind is from my view is false.
Okay, so you can reject that, but it doesn't mean I can't define it. Well, it certainly doesn't mean that it's true, and you haven't given anybody any reason to go along with your idea.
Sure, Jim Bob. Words are polysemous. You can make up whatever definition you want. Sure, we will concede that. You can make up whatever definition you want. If I want to define this as a phone, I can define this as a phone. Sure, yeah, I can do that. I guess the metaphysical organ. What the?
So, it's hilarious when the transphobes say things like that. Like, oh, so you believe in everything that you are accusing the other team of not being legitimate in claiming. Like Jordan Peterson, who's the biggest postmodernist of all time. Like, well, the postmodernists, they came out and they said, well, it's all power structures and nothing's real, so you can't really justify anything. It's all social constructs. But it depends what you mean by is. So
why do you think he's always crying?
I don't know. I think the benzenol or whatever it was did some damage. He did not come out of that coma the same person. I don't want to talk about him very much, but I actually used to be a pretty big fan of a lot of the stuff he was talking about, but then he just became so fucking weird.
Right. You have to say a mind doesn't exist, like I got Matt Dillahunty to, right? You have to say it doesn't exist.
I don't have to say that. I can reject your concept of it.
Well, just like the mind is not the mind isn't technically, the word mind is an abstract term that refers to mental phenomena, is what it is. That goes within the umbrella term of consciousness. Consciousness is an abstract term that refers to things that exist in reality. It's just the umbrella term that we give to that. The physical, mind is not like a cup of mind, but there is mental phenomena that can be measured. So
yeah, like the economy is not money and houses and people, but it's what those things do.
What those things do, exactly. Yeah, it's the same thing. Perfect.
Jim Bob, can you react to Carefree Wandering's interview? Maybe. I looked at a little bit of it. That guy's so boring. That bagel guy, he's so boring.
Come on, Jim Bob.
He's looking for his play button.
What is it? It's a metaphysical organ that allows you to engage with categories.
A metaphysical organ that allows you to engage.
No, I didn't. I called into a show.
What the literal?
No, it doesn't exist in your worldview. Not at all. You can call in right now and tell me what is a mind if you say it exists.
It's an abstraction. So it's a different thing. I mean, it's like math. Math itself is an abstraction. Okay, yeah. It's a descriptive language of quantification. Sure, but unless you're like a Platonist and there's like a 3 out there that we all derive 3 from, floating out there somewhere in some platonic space. Sure, I mean, but yeah, why is he not parsing out the differentiation between concrete and abstract?
I don't know. So, I don't know why he does anything. Jim Bob, why do you even try?
You're obviously a physicalist or a naturalist, right? I can never get this out of these people. They seek attention in the.
He's not talking to me anymore. So
over to the 25 question. Peterson's planet looks flat to me. That's funny. All right, let's keep going. I'm going to switch over to the 25 questions they can't answer.
Yeah. So you're moving the goalpost, but I can answer that. Okay. So in being an Orthodox Christian, you believe in Christianity, and there has been studies. There's empiricist data that you adhere to and subscribe to, in which Christians actually have a lower level of depression.
So the question was.
Here's Brenda. Mental states are brain states. Well, that doesn't say anything. That doesn't tell us anything. Okay, Brenda?
Yes, it does.
Doesn't tell us anything.
It does.
Mental states are brain states. Brain states are mental. It doesn't say anything. All that says, under a materialistic view, okay?
Oh, no, I literally cannot.
How would you know such a thing?
What are you able to do that other people are not able to do?
I was explaining, but you...
By the way, he's also presupposing that the ability to do something is what necessitates a better view. Peterson is presupposing his own worldview of pragmatism, ironically, in trying to kind of smear the caller as a presupper.
He knows that pragmatism is not a worldview, correct? Itself, it's the same as it was like that. Atheism is not a worldview. It's like I hate his You already pointed out the way he just throws terms around that,
I mean, if I was trying to be charitable, I guess I could say I'm trying to get this guy to tell me what his worldview can do, because according to me, what works and what's valuable is what has utility or whatever, something like that. So I wouldn't say I'm being hypocritical or anything right here.
I would say, as far as like explanatory and predictive, then that's what makes it better, because it explains it better and it makes better predictions. That's as far as you can go with that. Anything else that you're appealing to the person, if you're saying that it doesn't supply meaning it doesn't supply like an objective meaning for like, for like a person's life, that's an appeal to consequence, because that is completely irrelevant to the thing, because the universe is under no obligation to provide you with some reason to live your life. Okay, that's why theology exists. The God exists in order to give people this thing that they can't, for some reason, derive from themselves for whatever reason. So when we're talking specifically in these terms, then, so I don't know. Like I said, like I've said before multiple times, it's an appeal to consequence. It's just he doesn't like it, therefore it's not true.
Yeah. Well, I guess he's calling me a hypocrite because I'm presupposing things, but I'm actually not presupposing something different than him, because he's being a pragmatist, because I said other than win arguments, and then he goes, what it allows you to do is be able to justify things, therefore win arguments. That's a pragmatic take on it. It's valuable, or it gets its value from its ability to do these things. And I'm saying other than that, what can it do? And so no, there's no hypocrisy there, because
it's also in that everything in your worldview, however he's describing it, everything that you're referencing, we have access to. Is like, you can say that that's the thing I'm referencing in order to draw this conclusion, so on and so forth. Nowhere in your worldview are you inventing a thing and then defining that thing as doing the thing that you think needs to be done. So at no point where you're reflecting that it's like, well, I think this needs to be done, so there must be a thing that does the thing that I want to be done. And so, which is ostensibly, they're begging the question. So when they sit there and try to like drag you down to the levels, like, no, because nothing that we're not referencing anything that we don't have access to. We're not assuming the existence of anything that we don't have access to. It could exist, but we don't. Exactly. That's the whole square, which is why for lack of better phrasing, your worldview is more intellectually honest than theirs when it comes down to it.
Yeah. Well, you said there, that was the most important thing. I didn't invent something we don't have access to account for anything. So, very well said. All right. We'll try to let him speak for a little bit longer clips.
Peterson is presupposing that true things are true because they're useful things. And he's saying, and from that,
no. True things are what correspond to reality.
Point, that starting assumption, he's ironically presupping the caller and saying, tell us what Christianity can do. That's a pragmatic view. What does it do that my view can't do? What does it add? What is it this? What is it that? It's all strictly from a pragmatic view, which is arbitrary. So asking the question is silly.
Not arbitrary.
Because it's arbitrary.
Yeah, to say that we're trying to figure out that which best corresponds to reality is arbitrary that's pretty wild.
Peterson's position is arbitrary. Minds are the result of what the brain does. Yeah, it still tells me nothing. Is it every result of what the brain does? Your statements are as ambiguous
as phenomena. The set of mental phenomena. What that is.
Okay. You don't even know what you're saying. You don't even know what you're referring to, Brenda. You don't even know what the referent is in your statement.
He gaslights a lot. Yeah.
Minds are the result of what the brain does. Does the brain do anything that's not the mind? How would you know?
What's a metaphysical organ, Rimjob? See, your claim doesn't tell us anything.
You cut me off.
No, you started saying that if you belong to a social network, there are positive social outcomes for that. Hang on. Fucking shit. You can compare people that are free, that are members of Masonic temples or the VFW or the Lions Club or whatever, and you'll find the same kind of data. What can you,
Peterson Spurging,
do that
what can you do
other people can't do?
You can account for knowledge and truth and morality. There you go.
He did it again.
From his worldview, the caller's an orthodox.
I so clearly said, other than that, what can you do?
Christian, from his worldview,
and I have to say this. Fine. By the way, Jim Bob, we can account for these things. Okay, we can account for these things. We do not need a God in order to do this. It's just not. You just don't like how we account for it because it doesn't go to the standard that you think must necessarily exist. You hold a dishonest position. You hold things to a standard that are ostensibly impossible, and you're saying that the only way that they can be possible is if the God exists. But guess what? You can't demonstrate that that exists at all. So we acknowledge this. That, yes, we can account for knowledge. We can account for truth. We can account for morality. Okay, we have evidence for all of these things. And this has been, and this is why I think, and I'm going to say this directly to you, Rimjob. You are a liar because all of this has been explained to you ad nauseum. Okay, I explained this to you in a video that I did. I broke it all down, piece by piece, and yet you still will do this intellectually dishonest knowledge. So just straight up, he's lying right now. This is a lie. Just going to call that out.
Bad.
Sorry,
An account of
sorry
mind,
for spurging.
truth, knowledge, regularity in nature, invariant laws, reasoning, laws of thought, how life is, why
Laws
life
of
is,
thought.
toward what life is going toward. You can't do that.
The idea that imagining that a God exists allows you to understand how life is just so dumb.
Okay,
It's an untestable, unjustifiable claim.
simple.
So what I do is subscribe to a paradigm or a worldview, right? And subscribe
That's
and believe in
what
this
the
paradigm.
question
Are
is.
you gonna let me
If
speak?
no,
Are you gonna
because
let me
you're
speak?
not engaging with it, because you
Yeah,
know
you're
that the
asking me a
actual
question.
answer is nothing. So I'm going to get you to admit
It's
that,
not
but we're going
nothing.
to
It's not
stay on
nothing
topic
because it
here,
would be
Mr.
hard.
Swag.
I am staying on
Okay.
topic. You asked
So
me. Hang on,
the
hang
thing
on.
in question
So you-
is
Peterson is just steamrolling, right? He doesn't understand. Peterson, if you're watching, if you see this, I did tag you in this. You're
Thanks.
pre-supping the caller right now. You're assuming, again, make this very clear, in his questioning of the caller, he's assuming in his very question that the goal of a worldview is so it can give you something that's practical, right? That doesn't tell you what the goal should be. That doesn't tell you for what use, right? So he's looking for use and utility. He's strictly utility. But I've already given. Now the caller didn't because he's trying to do a wider scale attack on Peterson, but Peterson's not allowing it. General theism gives a better paradigm to live by,
No,
even if you're
it
a
does
pragmatic.
not. It gives a paradigm to live by, but not a better one. You're simply saying that it's better because you think that those things are better for people, but those are not universal. That you cannot state that any of the things that particular worldview provides are universally good for everybody, especially given the fact that a lot of it leads to bigotry and racism and women as second-class citizens and slavery is justified, blah, blah, blah. And you just keep going along these lines and all of all the theological nonsense people here. I don't want to digress. But no, that's simply him speaking from his own bias, that he thinks that these things are good because the God says that they are good, so therefore they are good for everybody. No, that's complete horseshit.
But if I don't do the things, then I go to hell, and I don't want to go to hell. Therefore, my worldview is the better one. Oh no! Did I just beg the question? Yes, you did.
Cultural,
You're presupposing your outcome is the outcome.
quote, Christian. By the way, if the worldview states that it's your duty to have children, we're already more evolutionarily fit than you.
Is
You don't
your
wanna let me
belief
speak.
system?
You don't wanna
What
let me
does
speak.
holding your belief system allow you to do? Don't tell me that you're a member of a group that has the belief system. That's what we're talking about. What does
I
it
just
allow you
explained
to
to
be
you.
able to
Yeah,
do
it
that
allows-
other?
Kevin says, what is utility? Yeah, what is utility? What's the best? What's the most utilitarian option? What is it? Are you predetermined? That's what's so funny is that Peterson here
is
is a
not
determinist.
thinking meta enough.
Now, I don't know how strict he goes or whatever, but he definitely appeals to some deterministic, mechanistic view. Why is a mechanistic determinist asking why another person believes something?
Because I'm looking for a justification for a claim.
And okay, I've never. I want to get clear. Have you like fallen on one side of the other, like determinism, or like are you like a full determinist? Because if you put a gun to my head, I say it's because there's not enough information because there's evidence going both ways. But if you put a gun to my head, I'm compatible in that respect. I would say I fall to compatibilism. But what about you? I've never heard you like specifically what your position is.
I don't really. I don't typically throw myself into like a category of, because like when I read like, oh, naturalism, yeah, that all makes sense to me. But then then I'll read some other thing like an atomist. I'm like, oh, that makes sense too to me. With determinism, I was pretty much always like, I don't know, I guess I'm probably a hard determinist, but I had a computer scientist tell me that these experiments on the Bell inequality theorem prove that there are things that are just like fundamentally indeterminate. And I was like, okay. But that also actually depends on which quantum mechanical view you take, because if you adopt a different one, then those results don't necessarily say that. And I don't have a quantum mechanical view. I don't fully adopt the Copenhagen view or the, damn it, I always forget that guy's name. The Everett interpretation. I'm not, that's beyond me. Okay. So I don't, I generally think, so like, I don't believe in free will, for example. I'll say that. So I generally just say that I'm a determinist.
Gotcha. Okay. Because there's obvious evidence that goes determinism, especially, given functional MRI experiments that indicate that your brain actually makes decisions before you're consciously aware of them. So, we determine that. But so I'm more of a, if you, like I said, gun to my head, I say I'm a compatibilist. I wanted to know if Jim Bob was pigeonholing you into a position that doesn't actually reflect who you are. So because he did that to me a number of times, and just wondering if, like, he was like, oh, well, Peterson is this. So therefore, it's like, is he representing you accurately or not? So I was kind of curious.
Yeah. Have you read Determined by Robert Sapolsky?
I have not.
Oh, it's so good. It came out last year, like exactly a year ago. And it's about, he's a neuroscientist, and it's just all about like the question of free will and stuff. So it's really,
I do not
really
hold.
good.
Yeah, I don't hold like libertarian free will is impossible. It just can't be.
Yeah.
But there is some aspect to like moral, like the moral distinctions and stuff like that there's evidence going in that direction. So like I said, compatibilism, if you put a gun to mine, otherwise I say I'm indeterminate, just like theories of time, A, B, C. There's not enough data, to indicate one way or the other.
Yeah. You know what? Here's what I want to do. There's a few more minutes of Jim Bob going over this, but he only plays a few more seconds of my video.
Okay.
Now, the title of the video is Pre-Supper Rage Quits, and then Jim Bob doesn't play the end of the video because what he plays is me like yelling at the guy for not answering questions. And see, look, I can't
Darth Dawkins.
Yeah. What does it allow you to be able to do? See, like that. And then he stops the video, and like people were commenting like, wow, that's what you call a rage quit? I'm like, you didn't play the part where the guy just walked away because he wouldn't answer any questions. So we're going to play my original video to go through because it's still presuppositionalist stuff. And Jim Bob, all of his usefulness was used up the day after he was born. So we don't really need any more of his commentary here. So we'll just attack it from the source. Does your worldview allow you to do that other worldviews can't do?
Abstract, non-material things.
Apart from winning arguments, according to you, what does your worldview allow you to do other than that? See, like I said, I'm not super proud of this, and I pinned a comment where I said it, but that's what was going on.
Yeah. I've had a few myself. It was like not my proudest moment because there's a couple that like Taco like posted up or like Future Nightmares posted up where I just go off and I just get so.
But he wouldn't engage with it. He just kept saying, right. I can account for blah blah blah. But he does eventually start.
This is a
is it
and I just gave you the answer.
You are pretending that. Okay, so. Okay. This is where I think I finally calmed down. Okay, so what does it allow you to be able to do?
Yeah, so adhering to the Christian paradigm, the Orthodox Christian worldview, your mental health, your depression, anxiety, all these things lower. So adhering to the Orthodox
There are Christians who are not presuppositionalists like you are.
That's fine, but you just asked me.
Yeah, so to say, if you adhere to my worldview, you get these things. But there are people that believe in Christ that don't have that worldview. So this is just not the case.
The question of what does adhering to the Orthodox Christian worldview do? And I just gave you the answer.
You are pretending that every Christian is a presuppositionalist like you are, which is false.
Okay. So it's false because it's false, so it's a circle.
See, they can't. This is why this guy and the other guy rage quitted. They can't actually defend anything. They just nitpick you to death in an attempt. And so they'll make a statement like that. And I don't take the bait on these kinds of things where it's like, now I have to prove how I know that what I said is justified or proven. It's like, and eventually your brain just kind of jerks off and you can't do anything with that, which is why you don't take the bait. You don't let them shift the burden onto you. Could I get a double-digit IQ Christian to come up here, please?
Yeah, no, I
Not all Christians are presupposition. People didn't get that joke. People are like, don't you mean triple digit? I'm like, no, the connotation is that he has a single digit IQ. Because having an IQ of 99 is pretty damn good, so you don't say triple. So, yeah, people didn't get that joke. I don't really know why. Rationalists like you are.
Yeah, not all atheists believe in empiricism, right? So you're
cool.
And I'm asking you, if you want to stay consistent to atheism, you would stay consistent to empiricism, but you can't justify empiricism.
Atheism is not.
It is not logically entailed. What the
Yeah, well, that's what I say here. Empiricism. Atheism is not empiricism.
But most atheists would argue off of the base of sense data, right?
Probably. How is it that you know things?
How is it that I know things off of my worldview? Off of my worldview, I'm connected to the divine mind, which gives
justify
me
that. Justify that claim.
Yeah, so it would be a meta-logical argument. The transcendental argument.
Justify it.
Yeah, it would be a meta-logical argument. It's proven by the impossibility of the contrary.
Shift the burden of proof.
So we would
prove that the impossible. Yeah, and I shouldn't have done this, but then I kept saying prove that the opposite is impossible, which I shouldn't have done, because that because first of all, it lends him off the hook, but then it makes it look like I hold that opposite view, but I never made a claim in this, and this is what the follow-up video to this was all about too. Well,
okay.
Prove that the opposite is impossible.
Are you gonna let me speak?
If you prove that the opposite is impossible, yes.
Are you gonna let me speak?
If you prove that the opposite is impossible, then yes.
Comparing paradigms or worldviews, we would be comparing your epistemology, your metaphysics, and your ethics. And
you have the burden here. You made the claim.
Yeah, and I
see. This is where that was stupid of me, because I said prove the opposite's the case, and then I say no, you have the burden, so prove your claim. So that was kind of dumb of me, but like this is all extremely impromptu.
But it's understandable given the direction it was going and what he was bringing to the table. I get why it happened. I wouldn't say it's dumb. I'd say that the guy has left you no room. You know, that's where his head is at. I think it's a result of the scenario, is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not perfect. It's fine to like acknowledge it, and if you're watching this, just learn from this. Don't do that same kind of mistake or whatever.
Check out some of my stuff. Where I flip out on people like I do. It's so embarrassing, because then I go back and I listen to it. I'm like, oh, I sound like such a cringe. Like I sound like Darth. You know, it's just. Ugh, I could do so much better.
Yeah, we can be edgelords from time to time.
I just explained to you, we would be comparing the paradigms.
So the question was, or the request was for you to justify that the opposite is impossible. See, I flip-flopped again.
Epistemology, metaphysics, or ethics, you don't have justification.
So could you please substantiate that the opposite is impossible?
I just gave you the...
No, you didn't. You just said, I'm a presup, and I'm right because I'm a presup. Could you tell me how the opposite case is impossible without just saying, my way is the only way?
Dude, you restating your position is not an argument, bro.
I didn't state my position.
Okay, so it's proven by the impossibility of the contrary. We would be analyzing...
Prove that the contrary is impossible. Yeah, that's what I said to do 10 seconds ago. So instead of going backward, go forward.
Okay, so under your worldview...
No, not my worldview.
Yes,
this is according to you.
What does proven by the contrary mean?
I didn't give you an alternative.
What does that mean?
I didn't give you an alternative. You said the alternative is impossible. So back that up.
So why do we use logic? We use logic because without using logic, everything would be impossible. So something can be proven by the impossibility of the contrary. It's called a metalogical
prove
argument.
that the contrary is impossible.
Yes, because...
This would only be the case if there's like a true dichotomy, right?
Right.
Okay, and the next guest that came up, we won't watch that video, but that's what I said, and then he didn't. I don't remember exactly, but I told him that. I was like, wait a minute, do you know what an argument from ignorance is? And he said, can you substantiate that or something like that? It's like, if you say it's not the case that if I'm wrong, you are right, unless you're proposing a true dichotomy. And then all he said was, can you justify that? So I was like, justify An argument from ignorance. So whatever.
Under your worldview, you don't have
I didn't give you a
justification for-
worldview. Prove that the opposite is impossible.
Yeah, so did I not just say that it's a comparison of the worldview?
I didn't give you a
Did I have to say it's a
worldview.
comparison of the paradigms? So we
I
would be
didn't
comparing
give you
the
a
paradigms
worldview.
Under your worldview, regardless of what
Holy
your worldview
fucking
is.
shit. He keeps saying the same thing over and over again. I'm telling him to convince me of why what you are believing or what you believe and claim is true, not some other claim.
You have to say these things like the laws of logic, peripatetic axioms, just is, but just is not justification, right?
Presuppositionalism is not a justification. It's just a claim.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's an argument. It's not a claim.
Oh, no, this part, hold on. It's funny. Keep it together because this part's actually really great. It's just a claim.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's an argument. It's not a claim. A claim and an argument is different, right?
How do you know that your worldview is correct?
You just said a claim and an argument is the same. That's wrong. Do we agree that's wrong?
How do you know
Do we
that
agree
your
that's wrong?
worldview is...
Hang on. You just said a claim and an argument is the same. Can you explain to me how? Can you at least concede on that?
Concede that an argument and a claim aren't the same?
Yeah,
Don't arguments have
claims-
conclusions? Is a conclusion a claim?
No, but
yes.
but a claim
Anyways,
is not an
so that's how I chose to deal with that.
argument, though.
Oh, for fucking crying out loud.
You correct.
How do you know that your presuppositionalist claim is correct?
Because it's
Or
proven
worldview, whatever.
proven by the impossibility of the contrary.
How was it proven?
As I said, so we would be looking at your paradigms, and you would have to give a justification for these abstract things, like the laws of logic, like universals, like truth in itself.
What about them?
Yeah. So how would you give a justification for them?
What does that even mean? For them?
Okay,
For
so
them being
zero-
true?
zero
For them
understanding-
existing? What does
zero
that mean?
understanding of philosophy. Okay.
What do you mean? So he rage quitted because he can't answer the question. So yeah, that was the point where he just left. So
Right.
I was just trying to get clarification because I don't know, because I approach this differently if people are like Platonists. They think that the abstract things exist out there. Or if he was trying to say, are they true or are they real? Because, 2 + 2 = 4 is true, but 4 isn't real. I wouldn't say so, at least. So that was
Right.
basically...
Yeah, the difference between prescriptive and descriptive. It's like, and they don't like the implications of them being descriptive, and that from our frame of reference, that these things are that they're abstracts are dependent upon minds, and we have minds. So, and technically, if you're looking at it from a metaphysical standpoint, without multiplying our entities necessarily, the ontology of these things, of these abstractions, are human minds. What they're saying is that they're putting the cart before the horse in that respect. They're saying that these things must be prescriptive, therefore objective. That's why we have access to them. And so that's what justifies, then they define the God as doing the thing that does the thing that they think needs to be done. Otherwise, they have to start from their ontology is human mind. They are abstractions, and they are literally relegated to our singular frame of reference on the universe. Therefore, they don't allow us to make absolute statements about our intuitions. And so by that result, they don't like the outcome. So they say, oh, well, that just means that these things are subjective. They're like, yes, it does.
Yeah.
Well, no, then blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's irrelevant. It's an appeal to consequence. That you don't like the outcome is not problematic. That you think you need something to say, this is what is good, and this is what is bad, and this is what you should do, and this is what you should not do. That's not an argument. That's just, like I said, an appeal to consequence fallacy. That's all it is. They don't like the result. They can't say it's false. They just don't like the result.
Yeah, there's also the attempt to argue that like truth claims, like when we make truths about like even abstract things like 2 + 2 = 4, those claims exist in the mind, but 2 + 2 always equaled 4, which means that if truth is eternal, then a mind must be eternal, so on and so forth. The funny thing is, we'll have to end it here in a second, but when the second guy came up, he rage quitted because he said, in my worldview, you can't account for truth and moral facts and things like that. So what got him to rage quit was I said, wait a minute, moral facts? Are you saying you can derive an ought from an is? Or I said, I don't know, I'm philosophically stupid, but I thought the philosophers told us you can't derive oughts from ises. And he said, yeah, I have no problem with that. So I said, well, wait a minute. But you're claiming that your worldview if you're going to claim moral facts are real, then you are deriving oughts from ises. And I wouldn't let him run away from that, so he rage quitted too. Well, any I don't know, final comments, funny words, anything like that?
I think it's pretty self. The whole thing kind of explains itself. Jim Bob, like I said, I'm still on the fence as to whether or not Jim Bob is simply ignorant, or if he is deliberately misrepresenting them for his audience. Like, I'm not sure, because these things have been explained to him by multiple people, not just me, and not just you, and not just other people. Like I know, Atheist Junior, Mr. Anderson, a number of others. So he knows them. He's aware of them. So I'm on the fence as to whether or not he's being, if he's ignorant or being deliberately disingenuous. So but nonetheless, there's obviously a lot of scientific concepts that he does not understand, that or he's deliberately overgeneralizing them in order to get his points across. But nonetheless, it's still funny as hell because,
True. We can always laugh. So there's that. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This has been an absolute blast.